to accommodate peace education. Incidentally, the United Nations has chosen peace education as its theme for the International Day of Peace celebration slated for the 21st September of this year. That shows you the importance of peace education. What is peace education? Peace education is the process of acquiring the values, knowledge, and developing the attitudes, skills, and behaviors to live in harmony with oneself, with others, and with their natural environment. Harris and Sincott define peace education as a series of teaching encounters that elicit in people the following: the desire for peace, non-violent alternatives for managing conflict, skills for critical analysis for structural arrangements that produce and legitimate injustice and inequality. These are some of the encounters suggested by Harris and Scott. The Nigerian curriculum should provide for peace education to be taught as encouraging a commitment to peace as a settlement, as a settled disposition, and enhancing the competence of the individual as an agent of peace, informing the students of the consequences of war and social injustice, the value of peaceful and just social structures. Peace education should comprise of things like environmental responsibility, communication skills, conflict resolution, democracy, human rights awareness, tolerance of diversity, and gender equality. Conflict resolution skills should primarily focus on the social and behavioral symptoms of conflicts through techniques like negotiation, peer mediation, managing anger, and fighting inequality. Communication skills should include listening, turn-taking, identifying needs, and separation of facts from emotions. Democracy education. Democracy education curriculum should comprise of identifying institutions of democracy, roles and responsibility of such institutions, citizenship education, and the accompaniment of citizens to accept the inevitability of conflict education. We should also provide opportunity for the training of students to foster a conflict-positive orientation, that conflict is the platform for creativity and growth. Other components of democracy education are critical thinking, freedom of speech, tolerance of diversity, compromise, and accountability in governance. Democracy should decrease the likelihood of violence and war and promote the culture and peace that we all seek for. Human rights education. Human rights education should center on raising awareness of human rights through the awareness of students to the intellectual governance and declarations of the United Nations, ensure local policies. Government should strengthen the informal system of education so that school dropouts and out-of-school youth can benefit from the peace education curriculum in an informal setting. Success in the education sector will correspondingly translate to a higher level of national development as conflict will be reduced drastically. Job creation, skills acquisition, development and partnership with government policies will no doubt be a boost to good governance, thereby building higher levels of trust between the government and the government. This conference therefore offers a platform for scholars and from the academia, civil societies, development partners, faith-based organizations, youth, opinion leaders and government to rub their minds together on creating the right opportunities that will position our youth as the engine of youth in a just, peaceful, and egalitarian society. I wish all participants and stakeholders in this conference a very successful meeting. Thank you very much.
That was a very great presentation. Your hands together for him once again. Very much. DG of NTN representative gets ready for his speech. I quickly would like to invite the Ambassador RIITA KORPIVAARA, representing Finland to Nigeria, to the stage. Thank you very much. Let's get up for her.
Maybe I need to move here too. Okay, I would like to express my appreciation for having this opportunity to meet with you today. I feel much honored to address this distinguished audience and would like to especially thank my good friend Professor ABENGOWE for this invitation. Education and training have always been very close to my heart. My mother was an elementary school teacher in a small town in Finland's north, Lapland, and at my early age of 5, I spent many days in the backseat of her classroom, anxiously waiting to start my own schoolgoing. Much later, after joining my diplomatic service at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, I was appointed as a training director of the ministry, and I had a chance to familiarize myself with the new and advanced teaching and learning methods and techniques. So once again, thank you very much for the invitation. Oh, sorry. Let me begin by presenting myself. My name is RIITA KORPIVAARA, and I have had the pleasure of being the ambassador of Finland to Nigeria for 2 years. Our embassy in Abuja is the only Finnish embassy in West Africa. Finland has been present in Nigeria since 1960 and have always had very close and good ties with your country. I'm also accredited to Benin, Ghana, Senegal, Liberia, and the organization IKPOT. So ladies and gentlemen, my spirit is always lifted when I meet energetic and dynamic Nigerians who have interest and determination to develop their country and tackle the root causes of some problems challenging the peaceful development and well-being of Nigerians. The organizer of this event, Diamond-Crest for Youth Education Foundation, thinks that it is essential to identify and define the root causes of the youth restlessness, violence and armed insurgency in Nigeria. They also point out that it is important to define and examine the place of education in youth development and national unity for peaceful coexistence. Youth development programs, skills acquisition and leadership training are needed for overall human development and peace and unity in Nigeria. I fully agree with the views of the Foundation. Also, we all know how important it is to exchange views and new ideas between different stakeholders and consider them in a context of realities on ground in your own country, for example, in educational institutions and schools. There are always some good lessons learned to be taken back home for the benefit of our children and the education reforms in our countries. I have learned that Nigeria has a clear vision of creating prosperity for the future by investing in education. Ladies and gentlemen, we have all been young once, and some of us still remember the strange and at the same time exciting feeling of unknown future. Everything seemed to be possible for us. All doors wide open, only ours to choose which way to take. Youth of today also needs open doors, different opportunities to choose from. Everybody wants to be useful for their community, for the society, to carry his or her share of burden for the good of the country. But for millions of young people all over the world, there are no open doors, no opportunities to go to school, to develop their skills, to learn a profession, a vocation, a carpenter, plumber, mechanic, tailor, anything that can make a living. I can well understand their anger and frustration growing inside these people, especially young men, when they are left behind. The prospects of the future are lost in vain. The root cause of their violence is quite often the lack of opportunity to live a reasonable life. Youth employment in Europe, in Africa, in America and in Asia is a terrible human disaster, source of social unrest and waste of wonderful potential. Also, we all know that the foundation for stability is through equality. Equal treatment of the people in my country is quite much easier than in many other countries, because Finland is a small nation. Finnish population is only 5.5 million, and we do not have different ethnic or religious groups, meaning that we are a very homogeneous nation. Nigeria, on the other hand, is one of the few countries in the world that has been able to peacefully coexist with more than 250 ethnic groups, and with a population divided almost equally to two major religions of the world. I do believe that the crisis in northern states of Nigeria is not a religious one. If Nigerian politicians have a will to tackle the root causes of the problems, which are poverty, lack of opportunities, lack of education, lack of equality, there's always a way to continue the peaceful development of the country and the coexistence of the two great religions side by side. Nigerians have a lot of tolerance towards different ways of believing and preaching, behaving and teaching that many countries around the world could learn from. Dear participants, I have been requested to say some remarks about the education in Finland. The Finnish education system has received a great deal of international attention in recent years due to the success we have had in rankings of secondary school students' reading and mathematics skills among OECD countries. Our education system has been further developed through reforms of universities, vocational training and adult education, among other things. Even labor market training has been modernized to better respond to the challenges posed by the economic recession. The immense interest shown in Finnish education is linked to the country's history. It was the strengthening of the role of the middle class in society from the early years of 20th century onwards that instilled people's minds the notion that education, rather than family background, was the gateway to moving up in society, and that it promoted social equality. In the Finnish education system, one of the most important principles is to offer equal education opportunities for all children, irrespective of their sex, economic situation, or linguistic and cultural background. Our education law guarantees equal rights to education also to young people with disabilities. To guarantee the same rights to education, the basic education in Finland is completely free of charge. This applies to the all instruction, school materials, school meals, health and dental care, commuting, and special needs that may occur. For these reasons, the teachers are able to focus on teaching and learning and bringing new ideas and practices in schools. They do not need to use their time in resolving the different needs of the children. Another unusual feature is the prominent position of women as recipients of education. Even since 1987, they have been the majority as far as awards of higher university degrees are concerned. And the pace have accelerated in more recent times so that the rise in the number of graduates is increasingly becoming attributable to the academic performance of women. One little example tells something about the equality in Finland today. We had a female president for the past 12 years. A man was elected to be the next Finnish president in the presidential elections last year. Young school children were confused and kept asking their teachers if a man can also handle the job of the president. They thought that that was amazing. The third feature of the Finnish model of education is the powerful adult education sector and the philosophy of lifelong learning that has been popular for many years and is reflected in the lively adult education and workers' education movements. Surveys have suggested that the Finns are among the most diligent seekers of education in OECD countries at all levels, including adults. The current notion of lifelong learning has in fact caught on in Finland simply because it was already a part of everyday life. The Finns as a nation are exceptionally well disposed towards education. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to teachers, they are trained to interact with their students and to create a learning environment. Teachers receive university-level training, and before obtaining their teaching certificate, they are required to have master's degree and pedagogic experience. Teaching is a very popular job in Finland, and therefore universities can select from highly motivated and talented applicants. The administration of the educational sector is flexible and it delegates tasks to teachers, allowing them to plan and work independently. The authorities also cooperate with teachers' organizations to continuously update their professional skills via postgraduate studies and lifelong learning. The previous speakers here mentioned about this, going to school once again and again to retraining. They are also eager to be involved in the school development processes and in their own schools as well as in national and international projects. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise the children. Surrounded by the constant interaction of their communities, children grow to be responsible members of the society. The school at best is an integral part of the community, welcoming also the parents and respecting the values and traditions of the community. However, to be honest, teaching is also a very challenging occupation, since teachers are the first ones to experience the students' anxiety and frustration caused by modern society. I remember my mother coming home often exhausted after a long and hectic day spent teaching quite restless children in school. I have a great respect to all the teachers, the candlelights of the nation, as they were called in the 50s and 60s. During my school years, teachers not only taught the children to read and write, but brought new ideas to the whole community on healthcare, nutrition, farming, gardening, or whatever was relevant for the well-being of the community. That kind of education is still often needed, and the role of the modern teacher is still a role of a reformer. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to succeed, a strong policy framework is needed. For a number of decades, the Finnish government has strongly favored education. There is both political consensus, including central and local financing, as well as public support for our country's education policy. Perhaps this consensus and commitment is born out of our efforts for nation building. When Finland was striving for her independence 100 years ago, the prevailing economic and technological assets at the same time were very modest and undeveloped. But we had resources for nation building. We had our human capital, we had our people. Finland does not have any oil, no gas. The only resources that we have are the human resources. We all realized that education could improve our quality of life and help to develop our nation. The role of education in society can be viewed in two ways. It can be seen either as a service produced by society, the quantity and quality of which is determined by the financial and cultural resources available, or else as an active force within society and ultimately as a source of knowledge and expertise required for developing the economy. In Finland, as in the other countries that are endeavoring to become the knowledge-based society, it is evident that the latter interpretation is gaining ground. In an economy that is becoming increasingly reliant on knowledge creation, development of the educational sector has emerged as one of the key strategic issues. The theory goes that education will increase knowledge, which will improve the productivity of labor, and this in turn will generate new affluence. The education provided by society is thus regarded as a means of increasing the nation's intellectual capital, and Finland wishes to be at the forefront in achieving this. Ladies and gentlemen, it might be argued that the Finnish education model is expensive. However, I would like to stress that investment in education is the best investment in the future. A country cannot afford not to educate its children or to give equal treatment and opportunities to every child. I will finish my remarks by quoting Derek Bock, a prestigious American lawyer and former president of the Harvard University. He said that if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. To conclude, I wish once more to thank Diamond-Crest for Youth Education Foundation for inviting me to this event. I hope that the cooperation between Nigeria and Finland will continue favorably and bear fruit in educational reforms of Nigeria. Children around the world are alike, eager to learn and train new skills. They all should be given an opportunity to do so. Thank you very much for your attention.
The management of NTA asked me to thank her for the dramatic arrangement of the microphone, the role of media in national development. Join me to welcome to the podium
Thank you very much. I've been introduced at various events in so many ways. I've sometimes been introduced as Honorable CYRIL STOBER. I've also been introduced as Chief CYRIL STOBER. And today I've heard a new one, which is Dr. CYRIL STOBER. But I'd just like to say, as I always say, that my name is just plain CYRIL STOBER. I work for the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. The chief executive of that organization, my Director General, Musa Mayaki, was invited to give a talk on the role of the media in national development and unity. He's unable to be here, so I'm standing in for him. I came in here and I looked so much I look forward so much to listen to one or two lectures, particularly the one by Professor Godwin, who I've had the privilege of sitting down with at a number of forums. I've also had the privilege of interviewing him on key national issues. So I was looking forward to listening to him deliver a paper this morning. Unfortunately, that's not to be, but I am certain that after this event, I'll still go over to him and get that paper which is prepared and not presented, because I think it will be apt. I will try as much as possible to keep this short. Let's talk about the role of the media in national development and unity. I've made a few notes, and from time to time I'll go out of those notes that I've made to talk about the select issues. Now, my background determines that I'll draw most of my examples from the electronic media. That is, of course, not to say that some of these issues we'll be talking about are not applicable to the print. And of course, these days, what we cannot discountenance is social media. But easily, if we are, by way of a definition, agree with this one by Sambe, who says that the mass media can be described as the eyes and ears of the society in which it operates, as it provides information and alerts the public of changes that take place and other issues around us. We begin to see that this topic is apt, especially at this point in our nation's development, where we're facing all kinds of challenges relating to unity and national development. And so the role of the media is key here. The media is also seen as the watchdog of society, but the potentials of the mass media can be harnessed for national development and unity by the media itself addressing all the facets of national development. Now, I'd like to see the media as a more or less like a double-edged sword. While you can employ the media to galvanize the citizens of any given nation for national development, you can also use the media to destroy otherwise homogeneous societies. And we have seen that happen in so many parts of the world. But how can the media achieve this goal of galvanizing national development and encouraging unity? It's through a number of proactive and efficient surveillance of topical issues and particularly agenda setting at all levels, agenda setting for public discourse. And this can be in all spheres: political, financial, industrial, education, as the theme for this conference today is, and so many other things that are interest to the public. Now, the surveillance and agenda setting function of the media is a basic responsibility for society. I'll give a few examples here when we talk about agenda setting. Nations strive to improve and governments strive to provide for the citizens the basic essentials, and that's why governments are voted in. But again, the media has this key role of serving as the vehicle through which all actions of an administration can be communicated to the people. It sits in the middle just like the fulcrum, because it is also there to provide that feedback from the public to the leaders. And so this is a key role in agenda setting. If today, for instance, Nigeria decides, or the administration in Nigeria decides to take a step that has some bearing on the citizens, perhaps after all the legislative and executive processes, the next two is to publicize these policies. And the media serves as that instrument, the vehicle for publicizing policies, and also for bringing a feedback to those who have enunciated such policies, see whether they are in concert with the wishes and aspirations of the people or otherwise. Now, if we take another definition, dealing particularly with the electronic media, we see that the things we watch on television, or if we extend it, things we read in newspapers, or those we hear on radio, these are things that people all over the country are talking about. So the media at all times must play a vital role in analyzing issues and situations, seeking out experts, stakeholders, and professionals, giving voice to all sides of a national discourse, and as much as possible, providing solutions rather than just the basic reporting of the news. Now that's possible by anyone, especially these days when you have the social media. Anyone with a phone can become what we call the social reporter or journalist today. But they are not necessarily setting the stage for a national discourse. The media must do this rather than just concentrate on the mere reporting that used to be its traditional role. But if we go further to television, we can say television is an instrument of national development, and in numerous ways it's responsible for agenda setting, and this is a priority. This definition is given by Adams. Now, television, radio, the newspapers, these are very powerful instruments. These instruments can be employed, as I said earlier, to make or break a nation. Interestingly, when Professor ABENGOWE was delivering his talk, there was some part of it in which he made reference to communication skills. And he said communication skills must include the separation of facts from emotions. And that applies to us in the media. Oftentimes, we do not separate facts from emotions or facts from fiction. Sensationalism has taken root, and with sensationalism you can break a society, not build one. So it tells you that this double-edged sword can be employed for either good or for evil. In performing this role, an organization like mine, the NGA, has had to draw from its experience, and for having been around for more than 50 years, the NTA draws that and uses that to try to build the nation rather than destroy. I do know that today one of the organizations that faces the biggest criticisms, media organizations, happens to be the NTA. And this is for a reason. A number of people believe, wrongly, if I may add, that if you do not highlight the negative things, or if you do not harp on the terrible and the negative, then you have not done your job necessarily as a media practitioner. And so we find we live in a society where government bashing, individual bashing is seen as popular. So you find media organizations whose main aim is not to look at those things that unite, but those things that give rise to disintegration. They harp on them and highlight them, and these are the popular media. For instance, in these days where we have all kinds of security challenges in certain areas of the country, some rather than look for ways of addressing the issue, they'd rather look at that can bring people together rather than tear them apart. What is expected of the media, you see, at most times? If we take the mass media, it means a large number of people and the organs of channels, that's the media. And so the media is a collection of organs of communication and information dissemination that reaches out to a large number of people. Information is the key word here. There are certain faiths where the scriptures tell you that people perish for lack of knowledge. I like to equate that with lack of information. We are in this hall, and what we do here is of utmost importance in nation building. But we are limited here by the numbers we have and by the organs of communication. So with the mass media, we can reach out to millions more. Something that takes place in here with just 2 or 3 people can be given that wide dissemination to millions all over the world. And this is a powerful role which the mass media plays. And that's why it's important in galvanizing unity, promoting unity and national development. It becomes important. Now, I have talked about looking at the things that unite rather than those that disintegrate. This is not taking anything from the truth of publishing what is the truth or broadcasting what is the truth. We cannot lose sight of that. It's extremely important, especially in terms of development. Take education, for instance. I am sure most of you have seen images on television of schools looking decrepit, derelict, no chairs, no windows, no tables, pupils sitting on the floor. These are challenges that we have in the education sector. But it would be wrong for the media to say, well, we would not like to highlight this because it will give us a bad image. The media still has a responsibility to do that, to draw the attention of those who are in government or who are in positions of authority to make a difference. Again, where we must see that publishing or broadcasting situations, the truth is extremely important in development. Appropriation. You do have the appropriation first from the executive to the legislature, and funds are appropriated for certain developmental aspects. Do those funds reach the people? Take for instance, in the case of roads construction, so much has been voted, and those roads have not been done. The media has a responsibility to bring it to the notice of those in positions of authority that what the people expect is not being done. So we may not say because we want to unite the nation or we want to promote development, we would hide the truth. Speaking the truth is part of promoting development, and so that's a key area as well. But we've had challenges. We refer to the media as the 4th estate of the realm. It's the 4th pillar to support the essential tripod of government, in our own case, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And therefore, we have a responsibility to act as that 4th estate of the realm. But in carrying out those responsibilities, there are oftentimes conflicts with administrations and laid-down authorities. What the media seeks to expose, those in authority try to hide. I'm not drawing an inference here, but if we search deep into some of the reasons why those who are meant to be here today have not been here, we would find an element of something to hide away from the media, to shield away, because questions can be asked and people can be held to account. And so the media's role, another key role of the media, is to hold accountable authority, while the private media are seen as the ones that will stand for the people. But it is not always so. It's not as simple as that. We talk about objectivity, and I used to have a teacher who would say the very concept of objectivity is in itself subjective, because the way you report, the way you interpret an event and report on it has a lot to do with your background and how you perceive it. I could walk into this hall and I would say, from my background, I'm speaking from the view of the Diamond-Crest for Youth Foundation, and I would say, I have seen a half-full hall, and I would be right. And some other person from a different perspective, given his background, would come in here and say, I have seen an empty hall. I might describe what I have seen here today as successful, and I might have arguments to back up my description. Some other person would say, you can only determine the success by the numbers who have swarmed this hall to listen to the lectures. So, which one is objective? Which one is subjective? It has to do, first of all, with your training, your background, and your bias. But again, there is what is termed as the general acceptable level of objectivity. which the media is enjoined at all times to uphold. Again, media and development, we have concepts as media and development, development media theory, and communication for development. And recently we've had the ones that we call developmental journalism, which has been taught in school. Some of us have decided not to agree with what that term actually means, developmental journalism, as if there is one that should be described as destructive journalism. But again, these are part of the functions the media is expected to perform through information, education, and entertainment. In the old days, you would ask what are the main functions, and you would readily be given to entertain, to educate, and to inform. So education is a key component of the role of the media. Unfortunately, we have had gaps in performing this function, and that has to do with the theme of what's been discussed here today, education. Our media practitioners educated to the level of using this powerful tool they have to galvanize unity and national development. Do we not deserve, does the society not deserve the kind of media it gets? How can we expect our media, particularly in Nigeria, to rise above board when all other aspects of our national development are down in the doldrums? So, to a large extent today, the media we do have is a reflection of the larger society that we have. But this may not be our lamentation. It should ordinarily be a wake-up call for us to see how much we can rise to the challenges, how much we can perform responsibly. I've had people say to me sometimes that, what do you do if 50 people, God forbid, are killed in front of this building today and you've witnessed so many bodies flying around? Do you just walk out and say, look, 50 people were massacred here? Or do you just say, there's been an explosion here, there are fatalities, and we're putting the numbers together, which would create panic, which would galvanize the people to condemn that sort of violence? I don't have that answer, and the arguments have continued about how you can report issues of violence, how the media can, show the situation without necessarily glamorizing terrorism, especially now. How can the media portray what is happening without glamorizing the situation? Where you have terrorists who have employed the use of the social media and even the regular media to spread messages of hate. The media has a responsibility to disseminate information, but at what point can we, as practitioners, disseminate information that is capable of causing more chaos and divisions? And this is something that's been debated, and I don't expect that any one day will find a complete solution to it. But whatever the circumstances, there are certain basic factors in the way the media can influence national development. Every medium must have a message. It must have a target audience. And it must aim at influencing change. And this change we talk about influencing must be positive change. Change that will, take us to the next level, as they say these days in popular terms. A change in attitudes and perceptions. A change in decision making. And generally as it influences behavior. Last night, I sat at a live program with a panel of discussants. And it was about the rights of the Nigerian child and addressing the issue of street children. And some of these things came into play here. How do we influence change? We had the executive secretary of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. And she told us an interesting story where a bus load of trafficked children was intercepted, and the agency rescued those children. But the parents of those children came back to say, what's your business? Are they your children? They are our children. We have decided we want to give them out to other people. Now, how do we as media practitioners, how can the media change such perceptions? How can you change it? Because a parent is poor, then they believe the next best thing to do is to give up their child into slavery or slave labor. So this is what we talk about, influencing attitudes. We might say government needs to provide schools, educational institutions. Yes, they do. But we also have the challenges of examination malpractice.